Hello, 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 hello. Very good morning to everyone who's joining us from all across the globe. We are at week 3, and this is the sixth day of 30 Days of Amplify, where we are coming with the ways of you could build with Amplify, AWS Amplify, use different features, and also working with multiple such categories of AWS Amplify. Today is going to be an amazing session lineup because we are talking about security with Amplify, and also we do have Eric on the stream who is going to be talking about type safety and a lot of things about AWS Amplify today. So if you have not yet registered or joined us beforehand, you can register at confirm.com/30 days of Amplify and stay tuned with all the updates about AWS Amplify and the events that we have in place. We are also running a hackathon, which is almost midway, and we are also opening up for new submissions. So, in case if you've learned something during these sessions of AWS Amplify, we totally encourage you to build a application out of AWS Amplify using different features, submit them on the hackathon dev post. So the registration link is in the has been displayed and also will be shared in the chat shortly, where you would have to share the complete repository of the project and also slides and video recordings of how do you use it, what is different features of AWS Amplify, what are you building out of AWS Amplify. That said, all in case if you have missed all of the previous recordings of the sessions that we have been hosted, you can visit us at our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/AWS User Group India channel, where all the videos are available to watch on demand. Also, while you are learning about AWS Amplify, do tag AWS User Group India on different social handles where we could see that, yes, you've learned something out of the session and you really found it insightful. It also motivates our speakers who are sharing their knowledge and taking some time out on a Saturday morning. That said, we also have a Discord channel open up with AWS Amplify. You can join the Amplify Discord channel with 30 Days of Amplify public. If in case if you have any queries or anything such while you're building something for the hackathon, you could post your queries there, and our team, and also we have the AWS Amplify team who will be available there to help you out to understand different features. That said, uh, coming in for today, the first session is about AWS Amplify security and access control with AWS Amplify with Dr. Abhilasha Vyas. So we'll get started with the first session.
AWS Amplify Security, Access Control with AWS Amplify and IAM. We are going to discuss about safeguarding your applications and data. We will start by introducing AWS Amplify. I'm very sure that till now you have got the understanding about Amplify, but little bit from the perspective of security we will be discussing, and about IAM. We will also dive into the concept of access control and why it is important, what kind of help access control can give it to us in managing security. Next, we will explore how AWS Amplify and IAM can be used for access control, and we will also try to see some common use cases where we can use this binding. Then we will discuss the main key takeaways from the presentation, and we will uh, finish the thing. So here, if you see more about this, so in AWS Amplify and IAM, we will be going to explore the combination of the services which AWS is giving and how Amplify is helping us in using this in the forefront and the background as well. So first, let's start with introduction to AWS Amplify and IAM. So as you all aware that AWS Amplify is a set of tools and services which are enabling developers to build scalable and secure cloud-powered applications. And IAM, when we talk, it is a service which enables you to manage your access to AWS services, resources, applications securely. So we will explore what these services are and how they work together to provide a secure environment for the applications. If we want to understand more about Amplify, so here this service specifically is providing features for app development, authentication, storage, all those stuff. And IAM is basically enabling to manage access, and it provides the feature for authentication, access control, permission management, and all those things. So as I told you, backend and front end. So Amplify, as we discussed, is a set of tools which enable developers to build scalable and secure cloud-powered application. It also provides a unified interface to manage backend resources like databases and APIs, and also the front-end resources like authentication and analytics. So when we say backend resource management, so Amplify provides a interface to manage, as we discussed about the resources, like databases and API, and based on that, we can create cloud-powered application. And front end also help us in creating cloud-powered applications with ease because we are using the services which are existing and it is providing us an interface to use those services. When we talk about IAM, as we discussed earlier also, that IAM is enabling us to manage the access to services and to resources securely. It also allows us, when we are using AWS Cloud, to create and manage users to whom we are going to give access to the resources and the application. We can create groups. We can also create roles to control that who can access this resource and who can perform these specific actions which are given. So that is completely managed with the help of IAM. And also we can say that it is a web service that helps us in securing and managing the access control to all the resources, like who is authenticated means who is signed in, who all are authorized means having permission to access a specific resource. So all these kind of aspects can be controlled with the help of IAM. We talked a lot about access control. So let's have a little discussion on access control part. So access control is basically the process for managing that who is authorized to access resources and perform specific actions in the system. It is very important to understand that why it is important and what are the common models when we talk about access control. So as we discussed that the actions which users can perform in the system means if they have access to database or not, if they can add users or not, if they can modify the application or not, if they can create users or not, if they can work on the applications or not, and which part of applications they can access. So all those things will be managed by the access control policies which we are creating. So we can understand the importance of access control, that access control is very important for maintaining the system security and protecting the sensitive information from unauthorized access and misuse. Because if you are controlling who can access your resources, who can perform these specified tasks, you will be able to restrict unauthorized access to the sensitive information. So that can be managed, and that's why access control is very, very important. Now we just understand these two important terms which I've mentioned on the slide: role-based access control and attribute-based access control. So when we say role-based access control, what we are doing is we are creating a model. It's a control model, we can say that, which grant access based on a predefined roles and responsibilities. Here we are assigning certain permissions to a role, and that role can be assigned. In attribute-based control, we are granting the access based on the attributes which are assigned to users, resources, and actions. So these are the two control models which comes under the access control. So till now we understood that what is access control. It is basically authorizing to access the resources, perform actions in a system, and it is a very, very critical part of security strategy when you are planning for your organization, because it ensures that only authorized users can access sensitive data and perform critical actions. Now, when we try to understand these two terminologies together, Amplify and IAM can be used together, and this combination is going to provide a secure environment for your applications. So Amplify provide authentication and authorization APIs for your front end, while IAM provides fine-grained control over access to your backend resources. So when they both are working together, Amplify and IAM, we can provide a comprehensive access control solution for the applications which we are designing using Amplify. And this ensure that only authorized users have access to the resources. So when we talk about AWS Amplify authentication, so we have several authentication options for front end, such as Amazon Cognito, and social providers such as Google and Facebook. And these services allow us to authenticate users securely and manage their identities as well. When we talk about AWS Amplify authorization, so I wanted to make it clear those who are new to security terminology, authentication means you are identifying that the user's identity is legit or not, or the ID which you are providing is of the specified user or not. So you are authenticating a user, that this user is authenticated. Second step is what kind of controls you have given to that user. What is the access is given to the user, that is authorization. So AWS Amplify provides authorization API, which allows us to control access to the front-end resources. We can use Amazon Cognito and custom authorization rules to ensure that only authorized user will have access to the resources. We can also work on IAM policies. So IAM policies provide fine-grained control over access to your backend resources, and this also allow you to define who can access your resources and what actions they can perform. So we can assign these policies to users, groups, and roles. And this again will give us the flexible and scalable access control solutions. Now let's understand some common use cases. Then I will take you to the AWS documentation page to show these policies and from where you can get the study material for these topics. So if we talk about the common use cases for access control, it can be securing the public websites or internal applications or mobile applications. So we will understand and discuss the unique challenges which these use case presents and how Amplify and IAM combination can be used to address them. So first is securing public websites. When we talk about securing public websites, these websites require access control again to protect sensitive user data. So Amplify and IAM can be used as a combination for authentication, authorization, and also for enforcing access control to the resources. When we talk about securing internal applications, so these internal applications require access control to prevent the data, and also because it's an internal application, so which part of the data access can be given to these applications and what can be accessed, that also needs to be accessed. It doesn't make easiness when you are doing internal application that user will not be, but the major threat when we see is from the insiders only. So we have to be very sure when we are working on the internal applications also. And when we talk about mobile application, again we have to check a lot of checkpoints when we work on mobile application. And we also have to see that what kind of access we need from the user or what kind of grants admin can give. So these things can also be managed with the help of the combination of Amplify and the IAM. So let's have a little more discussion on public website part. So the first point, as I also mentioned, is access control challenges. So here again, we need to have a, because public websites are open for all and anyone can access this particular website. So this is very, very crucial that whatever data is sensitive, that should be protected and accessed by the authorized person only. So that's a first challenge for AWS access control. And for that, we need to have a AWS Amplify kind of a solution where you are creating a secure, scalable, high performing websites. And also we can have built-in security features which we can use. And also we can have IAM to manage the roles, groups, users. We can configure the permissions to control access to the AWS resources, because IAM is very, very powerful and we are combining it with one another powerful service, that is Amplify. When we say internal application, as we discussed, that these are the few options which we need to work on when we talk about uh, internal applications, that how much access you are giving for the data, and storage. If you have, are you giving access to the entire storage or a specific storage bucket? So that also you need to work on. When we talk about mobile application, the first point which you can see is access control. That's definitely there. Again, up to which extent we are giving access, what kind of grants we need from the user, access grant we need from the user. And Amplify is again a platform which help us in creating secure mobile applications also, with the tools which are given authentication and authorization, and also for the data storage also we can use the services which are available. And IAM definitely we can use for again authorizing and accessing the applications for the user. So let me share my screen just to show you that what all things, let me reshare my screen rather. Just stop sharing and I will just share the, yeah. And I hope that my screen is visible. So if you see how Amplify works with IAM, so this is the documentation part where you can go and read that all those things which you can do with Amplify and IAM. So before you use IAM to manage access to Amplify, we can learn the features which are given. So if you see, these are the policies which we can use. Identity-based policies, resource-based policies we can't use. So whatever Amplify support, you can find it like policy actions supports, policy resources support, condition keys support, ABAC attribute-based access control is partial, temporary credential, forward access scenario. So you can understand these pointers from here, and then you can explore the options which are given over here. So identity-based policy, if you see. So here also we can see that users and roles don't have the permissions by default. So again, we can assign the permission based on the requirement of the application. So these things we can work together with Amplify and IAM, and based on that, we can have a strong control on the applications and the access which we are creating. Let me bring my slides back. Yeah, let me take you to the last slide. So we reach to the conclusion, and it is important to understand again that Amplify and IAM provide a comprehensive and scalable access control solution for designing your application, front end and back end support, where you can ensure that only authorized users can access your resources and your data is also secure. And always remember to follow the security best practices whenever you are implementing access control, and you should also regularly review and update your policies to stay secure. Once you create a policy, it doesn't mean that that is going to help you for a longer term. you have to also review that policy, and if it is needed, you have to rework on that policy. So that's all about a very short and crisp presentation on AWS Amplify and IAM. Thank you so much for the team for giving this opportunity, and best wishes for all of you for learning a lot on AWS Amplify and other services in AWS. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Abhilasha, for sharing a lot about AWS Amplify and how IAM works and why is it very necessary for applications to build with authentication. The next session is all about building end-to-end type safety and AWS Amplify Gen 2. And for that, we have Eric, who will be sharing a lot about it. So let me get Eric up on screen. Hey, Eric,
Hello,
how are you doing?
hello. How's it going?
Doing good. Glad to have you here and share all of the AWS Amplify insights with the community.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll go ahead and start.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So today I'm going to talk about TypeScript and AWS Amplify Gen 2. And you may be thinking that what is type safety and end-to-end type safety have to do with Amplify Gen 2? And I'm going to explain that in this talk. And I named it Type It Till You Make It. If you're in the comments or you're watching live, let me know if you, oh, I see a couple of you. I see a couple of you talking. Hi, Vivek. Good to see you. Yeah, let me know if you like to use TypeScript. I'm a big TypeScript fan. So really, there is a deep integration and a deep love between TypeScript and AWS Amplify, and especially with our AWS Amplify Gen 2, which came out earlier this year in general availability. And I'll explain what all these things are if you're brand new to Amplify. So we'll jump in. Vivek, cool, you used it. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So our goals today is what is end-to-end type safety? What problems does it solve? And then I'm gonna deep dive into AWS Amplify Gen 2. So if you don't know me, I'm Eric. I'm a developer advocate for AWS Amplify. You can find me on Twitter at EricCH or X, as they call it right now. It's pretty much the only big social media channel that I'm on. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you search for Eric Hanchett. Follow me there as well. I occasionally post on there, and I've been trying some other social media providers like Blue Sky and others too. So you'll probably find me if you look for Eric Hanchett. I also have a YouTube channel. You can go to eric.video. I haven't posted in a while. I'd also check, we have an amazing AWS developers channel. We have a LinkedIn and Instagram. So if you look up AWS developers, you'll find a lot of amazing videos, not just on AWS Amplify, but on all sorts of AWS services, including Amazon Q, Amazon Bedrock, and all that. Ooh, I see some people in the chat using TypeScript. That's good. What is type safety? This is normally, if I was in a live audience, I would have you guys raise your hands to answer it. But since we're on a live stream here, you'll have to just answer yourself or in the chat room. But I'll give you a definition. Type safety is the ability of a programming language to prevent type errors during compilation. And you're probably thinking, well, what is a type error during compilation? Hey, Sally. So I see Sally in the chat too. Aman has a good, oh, that's good. Yes, TypeScript is a JavaScript enhanced version, and that TS will use under most frameworks like Angular. Yes, that's a good definition. All right, so let's see an example of type safety. This is a very simple example. Let's imagine that you have, you're using JavaScript here, and you have a string 2, and you have a number 2, and you try to add them two together. And obviously, it doesn't make sense. You're trying to add a string to a number, but there's actually a little bit of type coercion that happens behind the scenes in JavaScript world, and you'll get something like this, the string 22. So it concatenates it together, and that's obviously 2 plus 2 is not what we expect it to be of this string 22. And it's obviously not 4, and it's not even the number 22, it's the string 22. And of course, as a software developer, I feel like this isn't right and this bothers me, and I wish my editor would find it. And of course, type safety and using TypeScript can help. So in this imaginary example that we have, we can set the type to number for the sum. And yes, JS, I see a good comment. Yes, JavaScript behavior is unexpected. Yep. But we can use TypeScript and have some sort of type safety involved, and we can set the number as the sum. And then if we try this again, we'll have that little red squiggly line in our editor, and we'll get some sort of error like this that says type string is not assignable to type number. And as a software developer, I love this. That's why I love TypeScript. If you don't know, TypeScript's a superset of JavaScript. It helps you set types, interfaces, has lots of different features. Microsoft has been busy at work at adding new versions all the time and making it easier. That way we can catch these issues before they get out into production. And so since I think at this point, we understand what this type safety is, what is end-to-end type safety, and how can we use this in our applications? All right, so I made this very complicated, amazing graphic animation. And it'll happen in a second here. So let's imagine we have a front end that's using TypeScript and a back end that's using TypeScript. And then we'll assume that we're using TypeScript in the back end and TypeScript in the front end. And then we have types that are moving back and forth between each. So let's imagine in the back end, we have a customer model that has an ID, a full name, and an email that are all strings. And we have this customer type. We typed it. And then here's our amazing animation I created. So the back end, we'll do it again so you can see it. It's really fast. So now the back end has, the front end is doing a fetch call, and we're retrieving to some kind of endpoint that we set up. Maybe we're using Express or another backend framework, and it's grabbing the information. Maybe we're using a Lambda function, and the front end now has this data that it expects. And since we're typing it on both sides, we are fine. So you can imagine that's a sort of a way to look at end-to-end type safety. So what problem does it solve? Well, let's imagine that same scenario again, where your back end is delivering this type over to the front end. We're doing some sort of fetch call. But now our back end definition has changed. So now instead of having this full name, which we probably should have made it camel case anyways, now we have this first name, a last name, a middle name we've added, and it's a different payload, and the back end has changed. You can see here we've removed the full name. Now we have this first name, last name, and middle name. So now we're doing the same fetch call from the back end to the front end, but there's a problem because I think this happens quite often. When I worked at this last startup, we were moving so quickly. Our back-end engineers were making so many changes that sometimes we weren't sure of the payload coming in, and the types that we thought we had were different. And so the front end expects this payload to come in, and then we do something like customer.fullname, and we get an error because, well, that doesn't exist anymore. We'll get an undefined or an unexpected, well, probably undefined there because it's just not in the object that was sent back. And obviously this is a problem. And of course, what can you do? That's what I look like. And by the way, all these images were AI generated. Oh, and stay tuned for all you people that are watching. There is a quiz at the end. So there's you may maintain a TypeScript file. I don't know if you've done this. You have a TypeScript file. You're continually editing it. You're making sure that it matches the front end or the back end, and that's kind of a pain because it easily can get out of sync to it. But you can imagine also maybe there's a number of different endpoints you have to deal with. Maybe you have to different query params, so it's not easily makes sense with this TypeScript file. What happens if you you're iterating the revision of, let's say you have a REST API and you have 10 endpoints and you're continuously versioning that endpoint, your TypeScript file in the front end can easily get out of sync. Oh, and there's this idea too of queries. If you have queries, are they type safe? So is there a better way? I don't know. If you're in chat, let me know. There is quite a few ways different companies handle this when they're maintaining types from the back end to the front end. Some people call it a definition, like a back end contract that the front end has to abide by, and there's tools to help show exactly what the back end has. There's the Open API spec for one of them. There's always drawbacks between all of them though, and let's take a look. So here's a few that we can use today. I have talked about this in previous presentations. There is something called TRPC, which is a really great way to do this end-to-end type safety. It creates like a server on the back end, and then you share this schema, this definition with the front end. It's really nice. There's Orville too, which I'm not going to show in this presentation, but I have been using that a lot. It creates, beyond just doing the end-to-end type safety, it creates this mock server workers. It has a really a lot of nice features. But for this talk, we're going to focus on one that I think is better than these other tools because it has a lot more depth to it. And of course, this is an AWS Amplify talk. So we're going to look at our hero today, AWS Amplify, and how it fixes this problem, amongst other things. If you're in the chat and you've used Amplify at all, I know a couple people did. Let me know. I'll shout you out. So AWS Amplify, especially with the newer version, we're going to talk about Gen 2, has a real focus on TypeScript. Prisma, someone mentioned. Yes, Prisma has that. So yeah, AWS Amplify has a focus on TypeScript. And so what Amplify is, it's basically a set of tools to help front-end developers create full-stack apps using AWS services. And we have been continuously iterating on that concept and idea because I don't know if you are new to AWS or you're an expert, there is a lot of complexity that can come with the AWS ecosystem to get it up. We had that great talk right before on IAM policies and roles. And if you've never used IAM before, there might be some learning curve there. But what we try to do is we have a lot of same defaults and a lot of ways to make that process much simpler and easier. So front-end developers and really full-stack developers can get started on AWS easily. So some of the things that we offer, this Amplify term has a few services, libraries, things mixed into it. First, I think the most well-known service Amplify has is hosting. And by the way, we will get back to the end-to-end type safety part of this, but I just want to give a quick overview of it. We have a hosting service that you can host your website on. You can host your front end and your back end, and you can do either one. So you don't have to do both. If you want to just host your front end, you can host your back end, or you can do both. We obviously support all of the major frameworks out there. I'm a huge Next.js fan. I was just at the Vercel conf, or the Next.js conf that happened a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco. It was amazing seeing all the cool stuff they're coming out with. So we support obviously server-side renders, static site generated apps, and more. We have auth. So we have a couple of categories with Amplify, with our Amplify Gen 2. So we can easily create your whole back end, and one of those pieces would be the auth with Amazon Cognito. We support storage. So S3 is easily added to a Gen 2 app. We have something, we have a data schema. So we use AppSync as our kind of our way we recommend people to work with data is with AppSync, and that connects to DynamoDB, or you can even connect it to a Postgres database as well, or a relational database now. And then we have functions, so Lambda functions. And really, I didn't put another bullet point here, but with Amplify Gen 2, we're going to talk more about that. You can connect to any AWS service using CDK. So basically, Amplify is built on top of CDK. So this is where I keep on calling it Amplify, but throughout this talk, I'm going to be talking about Amplify, but I might say Gen 2. They're the same thing. So if I say AWS Amplify Gen 2 or Amplify, just imagine it's the same thing. So Amplify Gen 2 is our latest and greatest version of Amplify that came out earlier this year. And someone already posted the docs in the chat. Thank you. You guys are on top of it. So what is Amplify Gen 2? And what does this have to do with this end-to-end type safety? So first, Amplify Gen 2 is code first. It's a code first developer experience. So everything is typed. We have full stack Git deployments. So you can basically build your whole infrastructure with Gen 2, meaning that you can create all your S3 buckets, those Cognito, your data schema. You can connect to any AWS service. It's an infrastructure as code tool. We also have hosting. I mentioned before, but UI libraries. But you can create your whole app and then use Git deployments to our hosting service, which is nice. And then we have ways you can test locally too. So once you create your front end, you can run a command. It creates an Amplify folder. Inside that Amplify folder, you define your infrastructure for AWS that you want. Then you can run a simple command in the command line and create an ephemeral sandbox environment that you can then test locally on. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. I keep emphasizing this because I'm a huge TypeScript fan, but when I mean Code First EX, all our tools are in TypeScript. We make it very straightforward for you to use it. And of course, we have schema validation, dot completion, and end-to-end types while you code. So quick, when I mentioned the faster local development, this is kind of imagine how you would use Gen 2. Each user, right here, Nikhil, Renee, Joseph, Danny, they would have their own version of the app, and they could run an ephemeral environment, and that ephemeral environment would be local to them, this sandbox right here. And they can make changes, they can do anything. It's basically an environment that runs just for them. It's in the cloud, and they can delete it at any time. And so every single user can have their own environment, or you can share one environment between multiple users. I think I'm still good on time. Let me know if I'm running late or too early. Let's see. We have a few more bullet points. So let's go back to this end-to-end TypeScript idea. So let's say we have a backend. We have AWS AppSync. We have DynamoDB and a Cognito. We have Amazon Cognito. So what you could do to create an application that uses these services is you would basically there would be a file in the same code base as your front end code. There's an Amplify folder, and in this Amplify folder, you would create this resource file that defines your schema. So what this says is we're going to create a new customer schema. This is a data model. It's going to have a full name and an email. And just with these few lines of code, it's going to create all the resolvers that create, read, update, delete, and list with AppSync. And then it's going to create the DynamoDB database, and it's going to be ready for you to use in your front end code. And then we can also have these fine-grained access controls and permissions. So let's say in this one, this customer model can only be used by users that create this model. So basically only logged in users who created this, and also public users could read it. And what's really nice is that in this kind of paradigm that we have, you actually have this schema. And by the way, when you create this boilerplate comes for you out of the box. You don't have to write this yourself. Obviously, you have to write the model and what data models you want. But it has this new schema, and this schema is exported out from basically your backend code, so your front end can use it. So you can get this nice tight coupling between the front end and back end and have the same types. So that way, when you query stuff from your front end, you'll have the exact types without having to worry about if things change. And I have a demo of that. For auth, there would be this one file that sits in a file in your front end in your Amplify folder, and this would define your Amazon Cognito service. So this would create a Cognito service for you and add this user attribute for a profile picture. And this very important thing is we have this define auth, and this is typed as well, so you don't have to guess what object to create. So once I said earlier, I'm a huge Next.js fan and React. If you are in the chat, let me know. Hopefully there's other React fans out here. So we're going to the front end now. Imagine this is a component in your front end, and you want to connect to that customer schema data model that we just created. So you can we have an API, a AWS Amplify NPM module that you install into your front end code, and it would give you this generate client. You would use that same schema that we exported out from the front end, or excuse me, from the back end code and the infrastructure that we just defined. We can use a use state and use that schema that we use to make sure we have the correct types. And then we can do things like this wait client.models customer.list. We can do create, updates, deletes, all as we expect. And this whole data model would be typed, and we would know exactly what was coming from the back end. And then I mentioned a few times that we're using AppSync. And for those of you who have used AppSync in before, it's a managed GraphQL service. So some people think GraphQL and think, oh, how do I write GraphQL queries? We abstract all the complexity away to write queries, so you don't have to learn all that. We have limits. Someone mentioned Prisma earlier. So if you're familiar with having used the Prisma API, you're going to be at home using the Amplify API. But one of the big things with GraphQL is that it's easy to overfetch data. That way, so if you don't, it's really easy to accidentally grab too much information. And nice thing with Gen 2 is you can do the selection set, so you get exactly the data that you want back, just like you would do if you were writing a normal GraphQL or GQL query. So here's a quick demo. I have a video here. So I'm going to pause it here. On the left-hand side is my client. So imagine this is like a component called new to do in your Next.js or React app, or Vue Angular app too. And on the right-hand side, we have the backend definition. So on the left-hand side, I'm doing a window.prompt content. And then on the right-hand side, I'm basically defining the data model. And I just created it content and made it required. I'm creating a location, a latitude, and a longitude. And on the right-hand side, you can see here, I'm getting completion in real time. So on the right-hand side, I've already defined the backend data model, and my front-end code already knows exactly what it expects. And it's already typed there. You can see it's typed. I'm going to add a priority with an enum of low, medium, and high. And then the left-hand side, you can see it already knows it's high, low, and medium. As I save the file in my backend, it's already available on the front end. You can see that's the end-to-end type safety part of Gen 2. So there's a few other things I'm going to wrap up here that we offer just for completeness. We have a unified Amplify console. So I mentioned that you can create your backend and you need to host it somewhere. We have Amplify hosting, which also has this console, which you can then upload, basically host your website, your backend, and in your front end. And if you host your backend with us using the Amplify console, you have this nice little data manager that you can use to see the data that you have, and you can query it and things like that using the API Playground. We have Figma to React components. We're all in on React. JS is our framework. So we have this Amplify UI kit. It's a Figma plugin that you can use. You can basically design a lot of your website in this Figma plugin and then download the components directly into your Amplify app, which is really cool. And you can use a lot of these things separately, kind of a la carte wise. You don't have to use all of them. You just run this ampex generate forms. And we create all these forms, and you can see they're typed, which is great. We have a whole UI components library too. And the reason you may want to use this, I'm a huge Tailwind fan. I don't know if anyone else here in the chat uses Tailwind. It's a really nice front-end utility class library that makes it really easy to create really nice looking sites and just using these utility classes. But one reason you would want to use something like our UI components library is we have these things called connected components. And these connected components wrap a lot of common functionality that you would use with AWS services. Like, for example, you need to upload a file to S3. Then you can use our UI React storage adapter. It adds a drop files here. You can drop files there. You can upload it. I don't think I have a screenshot of it, but we also have an authenticator component, which connects to Cognito to add in a sign in, sign out, multi-factor authentication. In the last talk, they mentioned doing Facebook, basically social logins. We support that too with these UI components. I don't have time to show this, but I did an amazing 4 web devs build the same app idea challenge. Look up Jason Langsdorf. He's been doing a bunch of these. I was in this episode with these people, and they all use AWS Amplify Gen 2 to do this end-to-end type safety, but they also created games off it. I'm a huge game fan, and it was really cool to see what people could do using Gen 2. So thank you. I put QR codes here, one to our Discord channel, so if you want to learn more about it, and more in the doc site as well.
Awesome, Eric. That was indeed an insightful session about TypeScript. Yeah, I'm a TypeScript fan as well, so I could totally relate to a lot of things that you mentioned. And a good call out about the different categories that Amplify supports. And I know that recently there was this announcement around S3 being integrated with Amplify hosting. So yeah, kudos to the Amplify team.
Yes, yeah. Real quick, I'll give a shout out if you don't know. If you're using S3, there's now a new option at the bottom of it when you're in an S3 bucket, if you're using static hosting, to host it using Amplify hosting, which makes the process much easier. It's instantaneous, and it just works really well. So that's a really cool new feature. Yeah, thank you for having me on, Jones, and thanks for the chat for you guys shouting up there, and Aman and everybody. Oh, thank you. Yes, Aman. Yeah, I haven't used Amplify. Thank you for sharing the features in Gen 2's advanced version. Yes, cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for taking time on a Saturday morning. I think it's still Friday night, late night for you.
Yes. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Thanks for taking your time, Eric.
Thank you.
Well, the last session for today is around building WebApp security and configuring SSO with AWS Amplify. Let me get the recording on stage.
This is Vishal here, and welcome to 30 Days of Amplify. Today, we'll be focusing on security and how we can streamline web app security, especially with Amplify and SSO setup. A brief introduction about me. So, I am Vishal, and I have been part of AWS for past 3 years, and currently I am an accredited Amplify SME, and I have been supporting customers for quite some time now.
Yep. Hello everyone, this is Susmita. I work as a cloud support engineer. I have been with AWS for more than 3.5 years, and I'm also an Amplifies Me.
Looks like there's some audio issue. Let me just reshare it. Uh, Sorry about it. Looks like
Moving
the
on.
audio is still not in. Just a moment.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Vishal here, and welcome to 30 Days of Amplify. Today we'll be focusing on security and how we can streamline web app security, especially with Amplify and SSO setup. A brief introduction about me. So I am Vishal, and I have been part of AWS for past 3 years, and currently I am an accredited Amplify SME, and I have been supporting customers for quite some time now.
Yeah. Hello everyone, this is Susmita. I work as a cloud support engineer. I have been with AWS for more than 3.5 years, and I'm also an amplifies me.
Mm.
Mm. Thank you, Vishal. So I'll be taking on the hands-on session. So initially, let's create the front-end application. So for the front end, I will go with the React.js. So we can just, let me open the terminal. So let's create a sample React app using this command. I choose the framework to React and the language to TypeScript. I'll open the project in Visual Studio Code. So for now, we just have the sample front-end app. Now the part is that we have to create the Amplify backend. So to create an Amplify backend, we'll go to the getting started manual installation part. So now we'll be creating an Amplify backend with Gentoo. So with Gentoo, these are the libraries which we require. And this is like in Gentoo, we'll be having a CDK approach. We write the CDK code which deploys us the resources. So I'll just install these in my project. Okay. While this is getting installed, so after this, we need to manually create these files. Like this is the centralized file, the backend. So this is the starting of the one. And now we'll create an auth folder also to define all our auth configurations here. So we'll go to the authorization section. Under configure SAML provider, we have a sample code which is with Microsoft. We'll be using the same one in our case too. Okay, so we get it here and we copy paste here. But here in our case, to fill up this metadata content and all, we have to first configure the Okta side. So for now, we'll just comment out the SAML part and have the rest deployed. And I think we'll just be running on localhost. So I'll just keep it to 1. And it's a single page, so let's leave it. And when coming, our Gentoo libraries are already installed. So now we have to install, now we have to run the sandbox environment, which deploys these resources to us. So the command is npx ampx sandbox. So this will be continuously running for you. So whatever changes you make in the backend.ts file or any file under Amplify, it will be detected and automatically deployed. So currently we have defined our resource configuration here, but we haven't included them in our main document. So I'll import the auth from the so now this will be deploying our auth category. Meanwhile, now we have a very plain front end. So I just will copy paste a front end which I built previously and I'll explain it. So this is like a simple UI screen for us to show the Okta sign in. So here, if we see, we are just loading the screen. In case if it is a signed in user, we are welcoming them with the name, or else we are just saying welcome to the application, something around that. So we have this condition, if authenticated, then go to the sign in. If they click the sign out, redirect to the sign out. And here we are checking the auth state. Like we use this get current user and fetch user attributes to get the authenticated state and the user attributes attached to it. And then, yeah, and here is our code where we handle the sign in with redirect, that is our Okta sign in. And this is the sign out code. We just do the sign out. So this is a sample code. And just a minute. I'm getting an error. Ensure that amplify backend.ts file exists. Okay. Now I can see deploying. So as mentioned in the document, the name should be resource.ts and I have it as resources.ts, which was the mistake. And now once I rectified it, it started creating the resources for me. So once it is deployed, we can see in our console the Cognito user pool. So let's wait for the deployment to be. I think the deployment is completed. So once deployment is completed, you will have all the outputs here in Amplify outputs.json, which is actually which we import in our app.js and we configure it. And now currently we don't have the Amplify library installed, so that is showing an error. Let us just install it in the another terminal. While this is getting installed, we'll review the Cognito user pool created in our console. So we got a Cognito user pool created, and under the app integrations, you can see we have an app client created. We have the hosted UI, we have the callback URLs, whatever we configured and everything. But here now we don't have any identity providers. So now we'll be configuring this identity providers. So let's go to the Okta. I'll start from scratch. So you can log into your Okta developer account. We have it free for some of the applications, so you can explore the Okta. So here under applications, we have to create an app integration. So when we create an app integration, it asks us what we want, like OIDC, SAML, or API services. So let's go with the SAML for now. So you can give the name as Amplify SSO. Okay, and next. So for the single sign on URL, you need to have like I'll show you a document. So we can pretty much follow this document to configure the Okta integration, this one. So our URL will be the domain and then our Cognito domain and then ending with the SAML IDP response. So I'll just copy paste this here. And for the domain part, I'll be having it in my Amplify outputs. This will be my domain name. And for audience, should be of this format. And I can go and I can have it from my user pool ID here. And these are all optional. I have to have the attribute mapping. So since I created with this email, so even here in the Okta, all my users have the email. So I have to do the attribute mapping for the email. Since the attribute mapping is a required attribute, we should have this here so that Okta shares the email address and the user gets created in the Cognito pool. And as a value, we can just select user.email. Okay, and in case like we can even have name, user.first name also we can have. And next, click here, next. So these are all optional things you can do finish. So once we finished, we get this meta URL. So which is the one which we have to use this in our application. So we go back to our auth resource. Here we have commented previously, right? We can uncomment it. Let's keep it as a SAML. And this is the URL which we got it from there. And yeah, now we can save this and yeah, another deployment is triggered. Meanwhile, our other Amplify library is also installed, so there are no more errors. So once that deployment is completed, we can test it as. And there is one additional step. So this is your app in this is your Okta side app, right? So we have to assign users, like the directory of the users who have access. So I'll assign people here. So I have mine and my colleagues as users. So first I'll assign mine. So that will be my username. I'll save it and done. So now this is a part of this one. Let's wait for the deployment. Yeah, it's done. So let's start a local host. Okay, so just give a minute, like we'll improve the CSS also. I have one CSS created for this. It's pretty much adding the background color and everything so that the UI looks great. Yep. So here this is. But in case if you see our localhost started at 5173, but we configured 3000. So let's even change that so that we won't face any issues. So I think that triggered another deployment. We can open our inspect tab, stay in the network section. Once the deployment is completed, we can test our application. I can see the deployment is completed now, but let's just verify the documentation steps if you're missing anything. So in the document, we have all the steps recorded with Microsoft, but now we are doing Okta, but at least for the steps, we can cross verify it. Initially, we did deploy our application with the minimum configurations. Once after that, we got our output section of user ID and the domain, with which we are able to perform the configurations at the Okta side. So in this document, they did from the Microsoft end. So that should be similar. And then afterwards, we have been adding our SAML provider. So in the SAML provider, we have been adding the metadata and then the attribute mapping and the callback and logout URLs. In our case, I guess we have this attribute mapping missing. Let's even add that. So it is nothing but Cognito and also in IDP provider, we map what the values we should be getting from the Okta, just like how we did the attribute mapping in the Okta and also. So we have mapped the email, and in Okta side, we even mapped the name, right? So let's also map the name to the given name. Yep. And that triggers another deployment. And just for verification purpose, in case if you want to see how this attribute mapping, here we have SAML assertion. So if we see the attribute name, it is taking the value, the attribute name is this one, and the value it is taking as Susmita. So Susmita will be mapped to by name, and this will be my username. Uh, Okay, and then I think deployment is still going on. Once the deployment is completed, we can test our application. Yeah, the deployment is completed, and I'll pause it. That is an error screen, okay? I'll pause it here and again.
Okay.
Okay, as a pause, I'll do.
It's okay. Just take a pause and then say I'm pausing it.
Yeah. So my deployment is now completed. Let me go to my app. Okay, let's be on the network tab to even monitor the calls. I'll do sign in with Okta. It is sending the SAML request. It's redirecting there. Yep. So I am logged in into the Okta. If we can just review, just a minute, we can review the settings here, like the request. Just a minute. So we are sending this request to our Cognito domain with all the redirect URLs, the scopes and everything. So from there, we are sending the SAML request. We can even decode this SAML request in online decoders to understand what is going in the request. Like it would be the same, the things we see here, the redirect and everything. So after that, we received a code back, which is a success, which represents a success. In case if we have any issue at this stage, we'll be getting that SAML invalid response or any errors regarding the SAML. So, and also to verify that you have the user, generally any logged in user credentials will be by default stored in the local host. So here I can see my username. I can see the ID tokens. So my sign-in state, my ID tokens, access token, everything which are related to Cognito. And now when I click sign out, this information gets erased. Okay, so that is like a quick integration. So I signed in my user again, and one issue I'm seeing is in code I map this welcome to my username to just show my name rather than an entire email or my username. So to get this right, let me verify the mapping once again from the Cognito end and from the Okta end. So from the Cognito end, we could go to the sign-in experience and you will find your Okta provider here. And then in the attribute mappings, you can see. So we mapped email to to this one and then the given name to this one. So this looks right. Let's verify in Okta. We can go to the Okta SAML settings, edit, next. We have to email address is fine. Yep, I can see a dot here. Let's remove this. Next, finish. Okay, let's delete this current user which we have and let's recreate the user. Disable, delete. Okay, we'll clear this session out. We'll do a hard refresh. I sign in again. Yep, that sorted it. So whenever, if you're facing any issues with the attribute mapping, just verify it in Cognito and from the Okta end. Don't try to edit anything from the Cognito end directly. Try to change the configurations from the Amplify files itself. So if you have to share anything, you can change here. And here we have been mapping under the attributes given name. So from there, it is going to display us this name. So this is for the integration between both. And in case now, if we see, there is one more issue we can see. So I sign out, like I signed out, and again when I sign in, if I want to sign up with a different user, like it's not Sushmita, I want to sign up with my colleague's account like Abhishek or anyone. So that one should be changed. This issue is occurring because when I click sign out, I'm only signing out my Cognito session, but still my Okta session is alive. So whenever I click again, it is taking up the active Okta session and signing me in. So in Cognito, we have another feature which I'll show you. Yep. Uh, just let me move my screen. Flow option. So sign out flow is nothing but we have a simple enable option in the Cognito console, which is sign out flow enable. So we can enable the sign out flow enable by adding this IDP sign out equal to true line here, which enables it in the Cognito one. So what actually this does is when you're signing out from the Cognito, it signs out from your related SAML session also. So it is now going to sign you out from the Okta also. So we will even try this. We'll even try to do this. Okay, so first for now we have to add this IDP sign out equal to true in our resources. So after attribute mapping, IDP sign out. I save this. Started another deployment. Meanwhile, I have to follow these steps. Yep. Meanwhile, I have to have to run this command and get the certificate, and I have to upload that certificate into uh, Octant. So in my terminal, I will run this command to generate the certificate, and yep, I'll replace my user pool. I go to my Amplify outputs, get my user pool ID. I'll replace this. So this gives me this certificate. So now I have to create a file here. Let me create a new one. So I have to start with begin certificate, and then copy paste this content. Then end certificate. I will be saving this as cert.pem. Yep, this is saved now. So in here, I created the PEM file, and now I have to go and edit in the SSO in the Okta. So I go to Okta, edit, show advanced settings. I browse, select my certificate here. And here I have to also enable this logout, single logout. And for this single logout URL, I need to have a logout like my Cognito domain and then with a SAML logout endpoint, like that should be my ending. So I'll copy this here and I'll replace my domain. And for this SP, I can use the same one, this issuer. And yep, I think that's it. And meanwhile, let's see if, yeah, this is written. We'll just verify if that is enabled here also. So I go to the sign in experience, Okta SAML. I can see sign out to enable. So now let us try this one in an incognito. First, I open the inspect also. I sign in. So I gave my username, password. Yep. And I'm signed in. So generally before when we sign out, it is just signing out from our Cognito, but not from the Okta. So which is why we were facing that behavior. So now when I click sign out, it is going to log out from both. In case if we see here the request, this is for the Cognito and this one is for the SAML. So it has been logging out from both Cognito and the SAML. So I sign in again. See, it's asking me again to enter a username. So here you can log in with another user now. So, yep, that's it for the hands-on session.
Looks like another audio issue. Um, yeah, but what Shushmita was trying to demonstrate was available in this post. So you can go and check it out where you can configure the uh, Okta SAML for your Cognito using AWS Amplify, and it's so simple and it's very easy to do as well, right? And one thing which Sushmita called out was when you're trying to make all of these changes with SAML, of course you'll be using Cognito, but using an IAC like AWS Amplify to do all the updates from your AWS Amplify project to Cognito is the best practice, and we should follow the best practices about it instead of directly making any configuration changes on Cognito. But when you're working with different web applications, especially, right? And today, when we use a lot of applications, we prefer single sign-on, be it for work uh, authenticated applications or even some of the personal applications where we use social sign-ons, right? So all of these is available with Cognito as integrations, and even from the session about access control and AWS, Abhilasha called out how you could use AWS Auth, and Eric was talking about AWS Auth with Gentoo. That's exactly what um, Sushmita demonstrated in the demo. But due to technical glitches, I see the recording of the complete session had some issues. We will repost the complete session after this stream ends so that you can check out the complete stream and follow along. The next thing with that, we end the sessions, and another call out about the hackathon that we are running, we are almost at midway to almost at the end of Amplify Hackathon. We have about 4 days, and you could have learned a lot of these things during the sessions that we hosted about different things, be it about web applications, be it about how you use AWS Amplify, for the authentication part of it, for GraphQL part of it, with Gen 1 and Gen 2. And you might have heard a lot of ideas. Yes, this could be a good web app that I could build. If so, you have 4 more days where you could build the app and share us your complete Git repository with the project, and also the recording and slides explaining about the project and how you're using different AWS Amplify categories and the CDK to extend the capabilities of AWS Amplify. You can submit it soon. The link to Hackathon has been shared over the chat. You could take a look at it. And also, while you're working on the hackathon, you might have a lot of questions about how do you do this, how do you do that. Hey, I'm stuck with this error, and you can post all of these queries on the Discord channel that we have for Amplify. And you can join the Discord channel. It's not just limited to hackathon, but we do have a dedicated channel on for the hackathon. But all things Amplify, you could post your queries on the Discord channel. We have the quiz running now. We shared the quiz link as well sometime back. Oops. Should I get you on screen for the quiz?
Hey Jones, hello everyone. So just give me 1 second, please. Let me quickly share my screen.
See, in the meantime, while Shishit gets up his screen, you can visit konf.me, konf.me/q562326 is the quiz code.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes. Over to you, Shishit.
Okay, perfect. Great. So here's the QR code in case you have not already joined yet. So we'll just flash this QR code for a quick second. I guess the link for the quiz will be shared in the channel as well.
Yes, it's on the chat.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll wait for another minute. So we hope you all of you had a really great sessions today, although the last one had a few technical hiccups, but uh, we really hope you got to learn a lot of things, especially with respect to security, type safety, and the questions, of course, will be related to the sessions. So get ready to test your listening skills, understanding skills, and if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to us, the speakers. There's a Discord channel as well, of course, for the hackathon. Please do participate, share what you're building to the entire world. Okay, I think we can get started.
Yep, we have about 4 participants.
Cool, okay. So your first question should be on your screen in the next couple of seconds. What does IAM stand for, and what is its primary purpose in the context of AWS Amplify? Excuse me. This should be easy. Identity access management to provide database backup solutions, identity access management to manage access to services and resources, identity application module to enable front-end UI design for Amplify apps, interactive application management to facilitate real-time user interactions. This should be easy. Wow, great, perfect. So it's everybody's got it right. Moving on to the next question. Which security principle is emphasized when using IAM with AWS Amplify for access control? Open access policy, zero trust architecture, principle of least privilege, and allow everyone. Now, even if you don't know about IAM or AWS, you should be able to easily guess this one. 2, 1. Again, full percentage. Awesome. Principle
Wow.
of least. Of course, we have to make sure that the services are the permissions that are given is always least privileged is provided. Moving on to the next question. Which modern open source library is highlighted in the talk as a tool for achieving end-to-end type safety? Redux, TRPC, Lodash, or Axios? This was there in Eric's presentation. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, of course, the answer is TRPC. Okay, again, 100 percentage. That's good. Moving on to the next question. What additional concept is discussed in the talk to extend the type safety in full stack applications? Using infrastructure as code tools, implementing server-side rendering, optimizing database queries, adding caching layers for APIs. Again, an easy question. And as a reminder, these quizzes are a part of a tournament. So the top leaders of the tournament will get goodies. Okay. That's bad. Moving on to the next question. When configuring SAML SSO in Amplify, which AWS service is typically used to handle the authentication? AWS IAM, Amazon Cognito User Pools, AWS Directory Service, or AWS SSO? Again, an easy question. Which service is typically used to handle authentication? Awesome. Okay, looks like the questions are easy or the sessions were very good and all of you have been paying attention. Almost everybody is getting all the answers right. In Amplify Gen 2, what language is used for backend development? JavaScript, Python, TypeScript, or Java? I think in one of our previous sessions, we had an in-depth discussion in the chat section about this. Which language is used for backend development? Last few seconds. The answer is TypeScript. Last question should be on your screens. Which file serves as the entry point for your backend configuration in Gen 2? Is it app.ts, amplify/backend.ts, index.ts, or main.ts? Which file serves as the entry point for your backend configuration? Awesome. Again, 100% strike rate for this question as well. So it is amplify/backend.ts. So yes, that ends the quiz. And just quickly go to the leaderboard. So of course, this is the top leaderboard for the tournament. So as we have been mentioning, we will reach out to you if you are the winners of the quiz and share the presentation. Sorry, the quiz, the winner details. So yeah, that's pretty much it from the quiz part. Over to you, Jones.
Wow, that was an amazing quiz. We had 100% um, answers for everyone from everybody, right? It's wow.
Awesome. Big kudos to the speakers.
Everyone's paying attention and learning. Yeah, thanks to speakers. Awesome. That brings us to the end of today's event. So do stay tuned for more such updates on about 30 days of Amplify from confab.com/30 days of Amplify, where you'll hear about the latest updates about the sessions. We also have the workshop that's happening. We also have the workshop that's happening on 19th. This is a virtual workshop, so do register and learn about Amplify. You've heard a lot about Amplify now, so let's get your hands dirty and try some things on with Amplify and how do you build a memory matching game with AWS Amplify and Flutter. With that said, that comes to the end of today's event. Thank you all for tuning in. I know it's been a long day on a Saturday morning. Thank you all for joining in, learning about Amplify, and do participate in the hackathon where you can learn about, where you can share your learnings about AWS Amplify. Thank you all. Have a good one.